Lab number 86, investigating the center of mass. Okay, the center of mass is a point where the distribution of an object's mass is centered. Okay, so while mass describes the amount, the center of the mass describes a location. Okay, for example, if I have a meter stick, okay, this has a center of mass. So once I find the center of mass and I distribute the weight equally, it will balance on a fulcrum, okay, which is a pivot point. So right now I have this as a center point. If I would add a weight to this, even a little piece of weight, such as my cone, and this hopefully will give me enough, okay, you will notice that I'm at the same point, but now even with that little bit, you can see that my meter stick is not balanced. So I have to change the center point based upon the weight that I add to one side, okay, which in this case is not going to be much, so I just need to move it over just a tad bit to get the center point. Okay, so this is called the center of mass. Okay, so looking at the lab. Okay, so first of all, so we're going to look at these two objects here. We have two objects, talking about stability here for a second before we get in. So this object here has a large base, and the mass is distributed down to a lower part to the base. This is going to have more stability. This object has a small base, and the mass is going up to the top. So then the center of mass is going to be up here, whereas the center of mass is going to be down here. So this is going to be, because the center of mass is lower to the ground here, this is going to be more stable. Since we're going to have a higher center of gravity, this is going to be less stable object. Okay? So in today's lab, you're going to get a ramp, you're going to get a barrier track, you're going to get a cart, a metal cylinder, and two plastic cylinders. Okay. So looking at your lab, first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you have this table set up in your lab notebook. We're going to have an empty cart, a loaded cart with a low center of mass, and a loaded cart with a high center of mass. We're going to record your observations, and then you're going to give it a stability ranking on how stable it is, as 1 being the most stable, 3 being the least stable. So these numbers here need to be 1, 2, or 3. Okay? So we're going to take our ramp. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go from notch A all the time. I am actually on this lab going to hold my ramp in place, and I'm going to release my cart from notch A, and I'm going to let it go down the track. It's going to hit this barrier. You need to record what happens to the cart in your observation part of your table. So here is notch A with an empty cart. Okay, so there's notch A with an empty cart. Okay, so please record your observations of what happened here in your data table. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a loaded cart with a low center of mass. So we're going to take our cylinder and we're going to put it in the bottom of the cart. This is going to lower the center of mass because it has more weight down low. So we're going to lower the center of mass. Okay, just like that. We are going to then put this again at the same spot, notch A. We're going to release it. Okay, and you can record in your observations what happened to the cart. Okay, you can also kind of look at the stability ranking about what happened here. All right, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to put in a loaded cart with a high center of mass. To get the mass to be high center, we're going to use these plastic cylinders to act as a spacer. And we're going to put this into one side or the other. It doesn't matter which one. And then you're going to put your other empty cylinder on the other side of it. Okay, again, this is a high center of mass. Again, holding my cart, letting it go from notch A. And you will notice here what happened to the cart with a high center of mass as it hit the barrier. Okay. So observations, now you can rank your stability ranking 1, 2, or 3 with the empty cart, loaded cart, or the high center of mass. Again, you want to have the most stable as 1 and the least stable as a 3. All right. So next thing you're going to do is you're going to answer analysis questions 1 through 3 here, and then 4 and 5 on the next page here. And that is lab number 86, investigating the center of mass.